Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to a very special interview of the Final Cut podcast. Today I'm joined by someone who is an actor, writer, producer, director, and an editor. And not only that, but he was born in Manchester, so even more excited now. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, man of all trades, Ben Milliken.
How are you, man of all trades?
Yeah,
hopefully I can say master of at least one.
Well, you do a fair bit, so I'll tell you what. I'll end with jack of all trades. How's that?
Jack of all trades. I don't know. I guess you're never a master of one. You're always kind of learning, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to be.
It definitely is. Right. So, firstly, how are you?
I am fantastic, actually. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. So, I'm right in saying that you were born in Manchester but raised in Sydney?
Yes. Born in Manchester, born in Bolton, actually. Was in Manchester just outside of Manchester until I was 2 years old. And then we moved to Sydney, Australia. My dad got a job there and moved us all to Australia. And I grew up there until 2008. When I moved out to Los Angeles.
Well, that was probably fun for you, going from England to Australia and then to America. So you've literally been everywhere that speaks English, anyway.
Kind of been everywhere, yeah. I'm sort of collecting passports,
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah. Weren't you an amateur boxer at one point?
I was.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I still train. I still do the training. But, yeah, I started doing that when I was 11 years old and trained pretty consistently, fought a couple times, and then, yeah, I still do the training every single day. I have a little home boxing gym in my garage, so
at least you're still keeping going, really.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's literally part of my daily routine. So.
Right. So, as far as acting goes, how did you get started out?
How to get started? Well, I got started. I wasn't the kid that was in drama school growing up, and I wasn't the kid that was, I'm going to be an actor when I'm older. I was the kid that had no idea about anything, and there was kind of one thing that was always constant in me growing up, and that was I was obsessed with film and television. Not just because I just liked watching stuff, but more along the lines of I was really, really amazed by how these people could go ahead and create an entire world and put it on a screen, and we could watch it. We could literally be transported to a different time or a different universe, a different place, and see things that we could never see before. I mean, writers would do that with books, and it would be our imagination that would create these worlds and stuff like that because we could see it through our imaginations. But these guys used their imaginations and actually made it tangible for us to see on a screen. And, to be able to tell stories that way fascinated me. So that was the thing that was always constant for me growing up. And then after I finished high school, I decided I was going to go travel for a couple months. So I went and backpacked around Europe for a couple months. And while I was away, I kind of had this epiphany that, you can literally just do things if you decide to do them. So I had no idea how I was going to get started in this industry. I knew that I wanted to, I then decided, I want to act. I want to do that. I had no idea how, so I got home, back to Australia. I found an acting class and just figured best place to start is by learning. And then so a year later, I booked my first job, which then brought me over to the States.
I'm going to say, you mentioned going back to Australia. You spent 3 years, is it called Camera Studio, which is Australia's leading TV and movie training school?
Yeah, on camera studios. It's one of the best acting classes in Australia. So yeah, I spent 3 years there under the tuition of Sandra Lee Patterson, who's the owner of the school, and she's a fantastic trainer.
I was just about to ask you, actually, what does go on in a TV and movie training school?
I mean, this was more acting for screen, and this was all acting for screen. So it was literally everything we did was, scene analysis, learning how to break down a script and break down a scene, and how you're going to approach a scene as an actor. And then it also taught you how to communicate all of those things and do all of those things for a camera. Mm. So a lot of times when you study acting, you're studying the craft, and then, which is what we were doing, but then we were also studying the craft of acting for a camera, which is very, very different. The difference between theater and on camera acting is very, very different. So that is what we learned at On Camera. And you know what, the training has been so valuable to me, because it also helped me, later in life when I started, doing a couple things behind the camera, because I knew what the camera was going to do. I knew how the camera, saw things, because that was my first kind of training. That school also, we did some editing courses and stuff like that. So we learned how an editor was going to tell a story and how to be in a scene, and likely what the editor is going to cut from or cut to, and all of that sort of stuff. So the education was pretty fantastic for starting out.
So obviously I probably know what the answer to this next question is going to be, but would you recommend it to anyone in Australia with dreams of being in TV and movie?
Definitely.
So obviously you moved to the States, as you've already said.
Yeah.
You've done a fair bit of TV. I mean, there's Melrose Place, McCloud's Daughter, CSI Miami, which I am a big fan of, and the Amazon series Bosch. So how does it feel knowing you've starred on some of the best TV series that there has been?
I mean, it's a great feeling. Each one of them, I mean, I don't really look at it as like, wow, I've starred in the best TV series. As far as that is concerned, I look at it as more, I've been able to work on some really, really great shows. And it's more of like an experiential thing for me. So take Bosch, for instance. Working on that show was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had on a television show. The crew, the cast, everybody involved in that show, they're all just fantastic people. And the way that they all work together for putting this incredible show together is mind-boggling. There's no ego involved. Everybody's just doing their bit and working together as a real team just to get this show done, and it shows on the screen. I mean, I think it's one of the best shows on television.
Very high praise indeed. So obviously, like I said, you were in CSI Miami. So as a CSI Miami fan, which I still am to this day, what are the cast of CSI like?
They're all great. I just did one episode on that show, so I didn't get to work with all of them, but I think you find with a lot of these kinds of shows, a lot of the bigger shows that I've worked on, and in my experience, is that they've been together so long that they've gotten themselves into some kind of a groove.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's a lot of the feeling out periods are kind of over, and they're just waking up every day and kind of just going to work. And that's one of the cool things I like about working on a TV show, especially I'm working on a TV show that's already done a couple seasons. Because it's very different to when you show up on a feature film set or especially an independent film set where it's, everybody's kind of getting to know each other. Usually some people have worked together before and then some people haven't, and there's a feeling out period at the beginning, and then you kind of get into a groove. Sometimes you get into a groove towards the end of a shoot, but there is that time. And one of the great things about a television show like that is you don't have that time. They've already done it. They've done the feeling out period. It's working.
Because I always wanted to know, the reason I asked is because I always wanted to know what David Caruso's like, what Emily Proctor's like, what Adam Rodriguez is like.
I didn't have any scenes with Caruso.
Please tell me you had.
I didn't have any. I think so. It was a long time ago, man. Well, the scene that I did, I had one interrogation scene, and it didn't make it to the episode because it didn't serve the story well enough.
Are you joking?
Yeah, but it was a fun scene. It was a fun scene to kind of sit in the interrogation room and do the whole thing. So that was a good time.
Just a shame there's not many more CSI franchise. I mean, New York's been and gone. Cyber was here for a season and then went. So I really hope that there is more, albeit a couple of years down the line.
Yeah, and they got NCIS going now, and that's kind of everywhere. They got NCIS everywhere, huh?
Mm. But it's not David Caruso. It's not Horatio.
It's not Horatio. There's only one Horatio.
Just like there's only one Grissom.
Yeah.
My mum stopped watching. Just a mental note. My mum stopped watching CSI after he left. I carried on watching.
Really?
It because I'm a loyal fan. I actually carry series on as long as it's still watchable.
Yeah.
Yep. So
what's your number one series? What's your number one series of all time?
Oh, don't do this to me. I'm going to say Miami.
Really?
Yeah, I really do like Miami. I did like New York, but I think the problem with that was there was a lot of supporting cast that changed, whereas Miami was literally the same cast, aside from Rory Cochrane left in the beginning of season 3, I think. Ryan Wolf was in it for majority of the series, and Eva LaRue was in it from season 4. So the cast didn't really change that much.
Yeah, you could follow the storylines and get invested in the people.
Mm. And everyone was always there. I mean, Rex Lee was there who played Frank. It was like, oh yeah, I miss Frank. Right, so obviously, as you said previously, you were in Bosch. Weren't you in there for a full season?
I was in for in season 5.
Right, so obviously for those who have no idea what we're going on about, what is Bosch about?
Bosch is it's a detective drama based on a series of novels written by Michael Connelly. And it's so funny because my grandma used to read Harry Bosch novels, and my mum would read Harry Bosch novels, and then it was so fitting that I came from a long lineage of Bosch fans. But when I got the job, my mom was so excited. It's about a detective Harry Bosch, who is kind of like the stoic LAPD detective. It's very noir, got this noir cinematic feel to the show, and it's basically through every season there's a case that it follows one case every season. It's not like the other procedurals where they follow a case every episode and then get the guy in the end. It's a more long approach, and it's one case every seaon. And the character of Detective Harry Bosch is this extremely complex character. He's kind of like I don't want to say the anti-hero, but he's the guy that gets it done, whatever means necessary.
Yeah.
And you just love him, but he's not afraid to kind of
bend the rules a little
bit.
Yeah.
But it comes from a good place, because he's this guy, and it's very, very personal to him. this job. As a child, in the character, his mother was tragically murdered, and that's kind of what spurs him in this direction of becoming a detective. And each case is very personal to him. So it's a very, very good show. Very good show. If no one's watched it, I suggest you get binging right now because it is fantastic.
I would say, I will actually get round to it, but you know what the problem is with streaming nowadays? You get something new every single day, and everything else just gets pushed to the back.
Yeah, that's true.
So I will.
That's true.
Yeah, so by the next time we meet, I will have caught up on all my Bosch. I promise you that right now.
Okay, good.
So yeah, there's a season 6 coming up, isn't there? Please tell me you're in it.
No. I mean, I play one of the bad guys in season 5, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I play one of the bad guys in season 5, so that was, it was a really fun experience. Really fun experience. Yeah, it was one of my first introductions of being the bad guy, in a show, so that was fun.
I'll tell you what, give us a taster for everyone listening. How would you rate your villain in terms of evilness?
How would I rate my villain in terms of evilness?
Shall we go from a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being a bit weak and 10 to being more evil than, say... who's the worst villain that I know? We'll say Heath Ledger's Joker. Just because that's the only thing I can think off the top of my head.
No one can compare to Heath Ledger's Joker. You can't put anybody next to that. It was one of the most brilliant performances I've ever seen in my entire life. But I would say my guy on Bosch, I would say he's along the lines, he's around a 4. I mean, he's not terrible. He's doing some pretty terrible things, but you're kind of like, okay, you're one of the bad guys, and you're doing this stuff, but then, you know, my guy has a boss, and that dude's pretty dark, so, you know.
Yeah. I'm actually quite looking forward to watch. I might just skip seasons 1 to 4 and go straight for 5.
Well, you could go straight to 5, but then you won't get the context of some of the things, because the character arcs are present throughout them all.
I'm going to say, I had to do that with Arrowverse when we first got a chance to watch it. It was like, right, we'll just watch the season we're on, and then we'll spend however many weeks it is catching up, which we eventually did do.
Yeah.
Right, so...
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So we mentioned season 1. So you started in the main role of Blue Crush 2. So for those who aren't those who aren't sure about it, what's the story?
Story of Blue Crush 2 is it's separate from the first Blue Crush. It's a separate storyline, but it's about a girl whose mother has passed away, and she kind of goes to South Africa. Her mother was from South Africa. Goes to South Africa to kind of find herself and find her roots and you know, that kind of thing. And then she meets a whole bunch of people along the way, and she meets this kind of gang of misfits. I always seem to be around a gang of misfits. What does that say about me? But yeah, she meets this kind of gang of misfits who are like surf gypsies, I would say, that she kind of comes into the fold with and goes on this, you know, spiritual journey with, and ultimately finds herself in the end.
I was going to say, I was actually, when I was doing my research on this, I went through the cast list, and you're not the only one from Australia in that movie, are you?
From Australia?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I am from the only one from Australia in that movie.
Shani.
Oh, no, Shani's from Australia, yeah. Shani's from Australia.
And do you want to know how I know that? Because I used to watch her in Home and Away back in the day.
You did?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
So I know all about her.
Yeah, she was in it. She, you know, everybody in that cast was awesome. Yeah, I'm still good friends with Liz Mathis from that shoot. she played the character of Pushy. She lives here in LA, and her husband are awesome. We still chat with them and stuff. So it's good. It was a great experience.
I would say I'm just glad you brought the cast list up, because I recognise a certain Gideon Emery who has been in, well, just for everyone who doesn't know, he's been in a few Call of Duty games. He's actually been in my favourite Call of Duty games, so I recognise the face and I recognise the voice. I could say
Gideon's a stand-up guy.
Yeah, I could actually say
he's a hell of a guy.
I could say what he's been in, but it would take me too long to recite it.
Yeah, the guy's done so much.
He has. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I would say, what is he like as a person? Because I'm assuming he's hardworking but very down to earth.
Oh, he's a legend. He's awesome.
Oh, bless him.
Really cool guy.
I can't wait for the day I get to interview him, because we'd just be talking about forever.
Yeah.
So obviously you're in a movie about surfing, so do you surf?
I grew up surfing.
Ah.
So I grew up in Sydney, Northern Beaches, which is small beach community. So I grew up on the beach. So of course, yeah, I grew up surfing. Since I've been here, it's been harder to get down to, So I live probably an hour away from the beach, but it's just the traffic situation. And the thing about in California, the water's cold. I'm not used to that. It's cold all the time. So I'm used to being in Australia where I could surf in board shorts for 9 months out of the year, but in Australia, in here, it's not the case. It's wetsuits and all that. It makes it more difficult.
Well, on the plus side, if they decide to reboot Point Break again, I think we've just found our Johnny.
Well, there you go. Either Johnny or Bodhi. I mean, that's the role, isn't it?
Which one would you prefer?
Bodhi.
Oh, yeah, everyone loves a villain, don't they?
Patrick Swayze all the waysy. Are you kidding me? That's like one of the most iconic characters. I love that.
Yeah, the reboot didn't really do it much justice, though, did it?
No, it didn't. I mean, I don't think that's a movie to reboot.
So
you've got two of the coolest guys on the planet in the original.
Yeah, I just can't think. There's not that many movies that should reboot. I mean, Back to the Future shouldn't be rebooted. Apparently, there's a rumor that they are going to reboot it.
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to revisiting rather than rebooting. Like, I cannot wait to see the new Bill and Ted.
Oh, I can't either.
I can't wait because they're not like redoing the movie. They're just picking it up now, and they're older, and it's I can't wait. I actually read a review about it last night, and I am all in with Bill and Ted.
It's quite funny you bring that up because there's another Aussie actress in that movie as well.
In the new Bill and Ted?
Yep.
Who's in that?
Samara Weaving, who was also in Home and Away.
Oh, yes!
Yep.
Yes, there you go.
And you might not know this, but she's actually Hugo Weaving's niece.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Yeah, it's just sometimes when you hear a name, you're like, nah, they're not related, but sometimes they actually are, and she is.
Sometimes they actually are.
Now, just going away from what we've been talking about, so you starred in Mighty Oak. So
yes.
What was the premise of that movie?
So Mighty Oak is about a band. It's centered around the manager of this band. Her name is Gina. That's played by Janelle Parrish. And she is managing this band that is the front man is her brother, who she loves more than anything. They've been, as close can be. And this band is on the brink of making it. And on the night we're supposed to play our biggest show, we get in a horrific car accident. not my fault, even though I was driving. It's a catastrophe, and our frontman Vaughn is killed in the crash.
Ooh.
Shattering all of our dreams, shattering our lives, and, we're left to kind of pick up the pieces. Then you cut to 10 years later, everybody's kind of gone their separate ways. I'm working in a record store. Others are working in a cafe.
Yeah.
Gina's, taking it very hard and kind of gambling and drinking and doing her thing. And then one day, they find this boy who's about 10 years old, but he plays guitar. And he has the same mannerisms, and he can sing, and he has this weird similarity, almost too similar to Vaughn, our old frontman. So Gina gets the idea that he is the reincarnation of Vaughn, because the timelines match up. It's about 10 years ago. He's about 10 years old.
Yeah.
It makes sense, So she runs with it, gets the band back together. We're playing shows again. We're doing all the things, and then the drama and the story happens from there.
Yeah, rumor has it you executive produced this movie as well, didn't you?
I did actually. I didn't come on as an executive producer until after the film had already shot. So I was kind of fortunate in that sense, whereas I could focus on one thing at a time, which was kind of nice. I'm not the most wonderful multitasker, so it was kind of nice to be able to just wear one hat at a time.
Yeah, I feel your pain, brother. I'm not that great at multitasking either.
No, it's difficult.
It is. Yeah, didn't this get released during the pandemic?
It did. We had our premieres in some drive-in theaters, which was super cool, super nostalgic to kind of bring back the drive-in movie theater. And it's been released. It's been out on digital and rental. I think it's over there now. It's being received quite well. People are really enjoying it. It's a family film. It inspires a lot of hope. It's a very heartfelt, and it's a good little story. So I'm really proud of this film.
And a story where tragedy, obviously, tragedy turns into something positive.
Exactly, and I think that's what we need right now.
Right, so there's a movie I have been wanting to talk to you about. I believe it's called Sonora, The Devil's Highway, which intrigues me at Devil's Highway.
Yeah.
So what was the premise of it?
So this movie is set in 1941.
Ooh.
Where the President of the United States at that time, President Hoover, was closing all of the borders to the United States from Mexico. Now, on the border of Mexico and Arizona, there is this place called Sonora. At that time, there was an extremely large Chinese population living there. Mm-hmm. And it was around that same time that the Mexican government was starting to kick out all of the illegal Chinese immigrants.
Right.
So you had kind of this scenario where everyone's kicking everyone out of everywhere. And this kind of civil unrest and this extreme environment. And what happens is a group of travelers decide, after being, kicked out of their home and other people joining them, this, that, and the other, they start to make a pilgrimage to one of the only refuge states left, which is Baja California. Mm-hmm. And they're not able to use the roads in order to get there because the American border has been closed. So the only way to get there is for them to cross the Sonoran Desert. Now, the reason it's called the Devil's Highway is because this stretch of desert is one of the most brutal, harsh, and unforgiving landscapes I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, you've got mounds and mounds and mounds of sand dunes, followed by miles and miles of volcanic lava rock fields. It's just absolutely insane, the amount of it's insane, this place. It's scorching heat. It's
Go.
And my character, I play a bootlegging gangster from Chicago, and who gets stuck out there in the desert and stranded with my buddy, and this group of travelers kind of pick us up along the way, and we convince them to help us out. Otherwise, we'll end up dying in this harsh desert. But I'm not sure we can be trusted all that much. So it's a real story of survival, humanity at its most raw and primitive, and it's a story. There's love, there's loss. It's a really, really compelling drama.
It sounds quite intriguing, actually.
It really is. It really is very, very intriguing. It's a great movie.
I was going to say, when I was doing my research, wasn't it nominated for a lot of awards at Mexico's version of the Academy Awards?
10.
But the question,
10. Nominated for 10 awards.
Yeah, but the question is, did it win any?
Well, they haven't been announced yet.
Haven't they? When did they get announced?
No, I don't know if they've had the thing yet. So I haven't heard the news yet. So we'll know soon.
Well, I hope you do win it. If it's been nominated for 10 awards, it can't be that bad, can it?
No, I mean, it can't be that bad. I mean, something was done right.
Yeah. So obviously all the movies and TV shows we've just gone on about, where can people find them?
You can get Mighty Oak on Amazon Prime, Apple TV. I know that's where it is in the States. I know that's where it is in Australia and Google Play and stuff as well. Pretty sure that's where it is in the UK. Sonora is Netflix all over the world except for the States. And then Blue Crush 2 and Bosch you obviously find on Amazon Prime. Blue Crush 2 you could probably find on Amazon Prime. They're kind of everywhere, I guess. Gee whiz, to go through them all, I'm not sure.
Nah, that'll do, just so everyone has a vague idea about where to find them. I mean, more than likely I will spend the next couple of days going through them and seeing what they're like. Yeah, check them out. Yep. Right, so, obviously, I did say in the intro you are an editor, so give us an insight into an editor's job. What are the duties of the editor?
Duties of an editor, I would say, in its simplest form, is taking everything that gets shot and telling the story with it. I would say that I always say that there's three versions of a movie. There's the version that gets written, there's the version that gets shot, and then there's the version that gets edited. And the editor's job is one of the most crucial jobs on a film or TV show. Yeah, they're ultimately, at the end of the day, they're telling the story all over again.
So obviously, like I just said, you've been an editor. Have you got any tips for any aspiring editors out there?
My ultimate tip would be the same as it is for any aspiring directors, producers, actors, anybody, and that would be focus on telling the story. It's all about the story.
All right, then. Since, like I said, you've literally can do just about everything. Who or what are your inspirations, as in regards to filmmaking?
I mean, there are so many. Tarantino, Tim
choice.
Burton,
Great
Scorsese.
Great choice.
Anybody who has an extremely distinct voice, I think, is something that I can express, like really respect and really appreciate, because to be able to communicate your authentic voice through this, for this medium, I think is extremely valuable. And so, you know, you see those things, those films, and you're like, that's this guy who made that. I love that about filmmakers and how they're able to express that. So anyone who's able to really communicate their authentic voice through this art form are an inspiration to me.
I want to say I actually got my love of Shakespeare from Nicholas Meyer, who directed Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, because he was really into his Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So he got me into it. I can still remember Ricardo Montalban's Carl Noonien Singh just literally quoting all of Shakespeare throughout the movie.
Wow.
I'm not saying I'm perfect,
wow,
but I can remember a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, Shakespeare is something in and of itself, isn't it? I mean, it's fantastic.
Right, just so this next part, it's just your opinion as an actor that I'm really interested in. So, obviously, there are times where people feel that despite what they're aiming for, they're just kind of stood still and not going anywhere despite their best efforts. So, what advice would you give to somebody who is basically getting nowhere in the movie career and kind of feels like giving up?
I would say the best thing to do is look at where you started, because that's always a good indication of you know, whether you should do this. Is look at where you started, look at where you are now, and look at what you can control. So, yeah, if you are doing everything that you can, and you're doing everything that's required of you, like as an actor, if you're still learning, if you're in class, if you're all, then always aspiring, and things, your own material, own stuff, then I would say go for it.
Yeah. I must admit, I've had some of those days myself, but I'm still going and I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've all had them. It's normal.
Yeah. Everyone goes through it every once in a while. I bet even James Cameron went through one of those stages before he made Terminator.
Yeah.
Right, so this is a question, obviously, I'd like an actor's insight to. So, with everything that's gone on and cinemas shutting and streaming basically being more popular, do you think that cinemas will soon be replaced by streamers for releasing the movies on?
I don't. I don't think they'll be replaced because I still think there is nothing like going to a movie, and I think there's always going to be a place for that. Mm. I do, however, see more opportunities for streamers coming out of the... I feel like there's going to be more of an opportunity for the two to kind of exist together.
Yep.
Rather than one replacing each other. You know, I think there's going to be ways for them to exist together and kind of in a nice, harmonious sort of marriage, if you will.
That's one way to put it. Majority of the consensus that when I've been asking this question is that basically nothing will change. Cinemas will still be here.
Yeah, I think they will still be here, but I think the streaming platforms, I mean, look, it's opening up a lot of avenues for filmmakers and for people who are aspiring to do this. So it's not a bad thing. And I think, as a business, I think this industry really needs that. And I think it's pushing the industry forward, not backwards.
Right. So, what other projects have you got coming up, quarantine depending?
Quarantine depending. I mean, everything's kind of quarantine depending right now. Hopefully, we can go back to work soon safely. And I've got a couple things up my sleeves that I'm looking at working on. It's just quarantine depending.
Yeah.
Obviously this virus is, it's a real thing, and it's dictating a lot of things. And we have no control over it. So we just have to see.
So obviously, with that being said, what would you like the future to hold for you?
What I want to do most is I want to do cool projects with cool people. That's ultimately, at the end of the day, what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to continue to do. I've been so fortunate to be able to have done that so far, and that's the goal.
And obviously, if everyone likes what they've heard and they want to find you on social media, how would they go about it?
You can find me on Instagram, and that's at ben.milliken, Milliken.
And with many, many new subscribers potentially lining up, ladies and gentlemen, Ben Milliken.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.